Hi there YouTube, Voan here today, and today I am going to look at a comparison between the Super Famicom controller and the Super Famicom cartridge as compared to Super Nintendo controller and Super Nintendo cartridge, and to see which one I would rather prefer. Now everybody has their own opinion on which one is better for them, and to me with this video you know which one do I prefer the most over the other ones. Now to start off, I really love both of these controllers and games. They have some really good controllers and really good games. However, here I'm going to make a lot of comparisons to see what's so unique about the Super Famicom controller here as compared to the Super Nintendo controller here. Now I have the Super Nintendo console, but I don't have a Super Famicom console, so I can't thoroughly compare two consoles. And I also don't have any of those box or cases or manuals at all on any of these games, so all of those are pretty much gone. So I could basically just compare these two and the games. So today let's look at the Super Famicom controllers. As you can see, it's a very nicely designed, beautiful controllers. It has a really nice logo up there. Has Nintendo Super Famicoms. It doesn't have that oval around the Nintendo logos. And as you can clearly tell, it has a D-pad, select and start buttons, the colorful diamond layouts, and L and R shoulder buttons. So yeah, that is what's in the Nintendo Super Famicoms. Now we look at the Super Nintendo controllers. The same designs, same D-pad, same select and start button, same diamond layouts, same L&R. However, if you compare them side by side like this, you start to see some differences. And if I tell people to point out the differences, you will pretty much point out that the diamond layouts are pretty much different. Of course they are different because Super Famicom diamond layout are very colorful. It has the green, blue, yellow, and red buttons, which are mapped to YXBA. And if you look at the Super Nintendo North American controllers, it has YXBA with different colors. And not only just different colors that are not in the Super Famicom rainbow color here. So also, if you look at how the text was printed on the controllers, you can tell the Super Famicom has all the text words and letters completely printed neatly on the controllers. But if you look at the Super Nintendo North American controllers, you can tell every words and letters on the Super Nintendo controllers are italics, and those italics makes this different from the Nintendo Super Famicom controllers. So the Super Famicom has printed letters and words. The Super Nintendo has italics numbers, italics words and letters. Also, the buttons here are also different from the buttons here on the North American ones. So if you look at the Super Famicom, you'll notice that even though these are colored differently, all of the buttons are the same. All of the buttons are just convex buttons, recolor. So convex Y, convex X, convex B, convex A, all are color according to the logo here. Unfortunately, I don't have the box case for the Super Famicom because this logo here is colored the same way as the diamond layout. The Super Famicom and the PAL Super Nintendo controller, these are pretty much the same controllers using the same buttons, just recolor. Whereas Super Nintendo in North American here, this controller to me is very special because, as you can tell, everything in this controller does not copy from the Japanese Super Famicoms. So everything that are not copy works very well here in the North American control, because if you look at here, you have the D-pad, which is exactly like the same D-pad we know and love that we got here since the Nintendo Entertainment System. And then here we got the select and start buttons, which are shaped exactly like the select and start buttons we got here with the Game Boy. And if you look here, the B and A convex buttons, these buttons are the same two buttons that were borrowed from the Game Boy B and A buttons. And if you look at the Y and X concave buttons here, the Y and X concave buttons are actually the B and A concave buttons from the Nintendo Entertainment Systems. So basically, you have all the past control from past systems in the palm of your hands, and now you also got exclusive Super Nintendo shoulder buttons along with it. So you're not only having one, you're having 3 or 4 of past hardware's control in this controllers. This D-pad makes his first innovation with the Game & Watch. So you got the Game & Watch innovations, you got the Game Boy select and start buttons, you got the Game Boy B&A buttons, you got the NES B&A buttons, and you got the Super Nintendo L&R buttons. And don't tell me these are not NES buttons, because they are. If you look at the NES B&A, you can tell they are indeed concave. So North American Super Nintendo got the better deal of these controllers. If you look at the Game Boy's B&A buttons, they are convex, and you got B&A in here convex as well. So you actually have 4 of the best control from past 4 hardwares in the palm of your hands with the North American controller. Now, Super Famicom controller does not have that. It does not have the concave Y and X. And according to what I remember, the Famicom that came out before the Super Famicom has a concave B and A button as well. So Japanese pretty much just ditch the concave and just go directly to the convex, which are the 2 buttons that debuted with the Game Boy. And I think eventually maybe the Japanese people or the Japanese gamer love those convex buttons, so Nintendo just made all of the button convex and just recolored them quickly and sell them with the same logos. So this is pretty much, these buttons are pretty much the same. There's pretty much nothing different about them except recolor. So to me, that is not very interesting. I love the colors, but there's no uniqueness between the Y and X, and there's no uniqueness between the B and X and B and Y and B and A. Now, B and A can be convex the same, and Y and X can be concave the same. But Y and X here is not different. It's pretty much the same buttons recolor. Now, North American's diamond layouts, when you look at it, same colors but different design. And if you look at it, you actually feel like you got the past power in your new console. You got the NES, you got the Game Boy, you got the new Super NES, and you got the Game & Watch, and you got the Game Boy. So if you look at it, the Game Boy's select and start buttons are exactly the same. And you know, B and A here are purple, just like the Game Boy's magenta. So these are actually similar to these. But NES, these are the same as these. And the D-pad here is pretty much almost the same as the one here too. So North American controller, North American Super Nintendo controller here, this is the major reason why I love the Super Nintendo controller. It just has varieties. Has varieties from all the past hardware installed directly on this nicely designed controllers. And you got L and R, the newer buttons here, to add to the experience as well. Now, enough about these controllers. Let's go to the games. So if you look at it, here is Go-Go Ackman 2 and Aero the Acrobats. So yeah, now many people I know prefer the Super Famicom cartridge, and when I tell them the reason why do they love this kind of design, why do they love the Super Nintendo cartridge, what's so wrong about this cartridge, well, they pretty much describe label looks good, has a nice artwork, they love how it got this rounded edges design, and that's pretty much it. That's pretty much what they want. And it's also very comfy. It fits on the Super Famicom really good too. So, but when I tell them, so what don't they like about this Super Nintendo controller? Well, the artwork is pretty much bordered in. Super Nintendo logo is outside. They don't know what this are. And yeah, they don't like all of these unnecessary stuff outside. Now to me, all of these unnecessary stuff outside here are all necessaries, because these are what define the Super Nintendo. If you look at it, on the label here, you got the developers or the publishers logo in here. Sometimes it'll be outside the borders, sometimes it'll be inside the borders. Also, over here in North America, you got the Nintendo official seal of quality down here. Every game, every cartridge has this seal of quality to make sure that you buy the actual official hardware or official games or products for it. You also have these codes, just like the same codes that were printed on the Super Famicom card. However, since Super Famicom printed these things all over the place, it's hard to find them sometimes, but Super Nintendo, you will always find them on the lower left. And it tells you if it's made in Japan, China, Mexico, or whatever. Same thing over here. Sometimes it might be down here, sometimes it might be somewhere up here. Now, if you look at this side by side, they are kind of different. However, if you stand them like this, yeah, they do look very different. However, if you put them down here and you see the pin connector, the Super Famicom and the Super Nintendo has the same pin but different cartridge size. You cannot play this on the Super Famicom, but you can play Super Famicom on Super Nintendo, and everybody knows what this is. Everybody knows how to do that. However, another good thing about the North American Super Nintendo cartridges is, take a look at how I put the game on the shelf. Now, take a look at how I put the Super Famicom game on the shelf. Now let's play a guessing game here. Now, I have Go-Go Eggman, Dragon Ball Z Hyper Dimension, Super Butoden 3, Penalty Pongs, Garu Special, and Puyo Puyo 2 in there somewhere. Now, I want you to choose or guess which one is Penalty Pong. Do you know? Of course, you don't know. Why is that? It does not have end labels. You cannot know which game is in which. We know that this is Go-Go Eggman 2 because I just put Go-Go Eggman 2 in there. Now, let's see if we can find Penalty Pong among all these games. Maybe it's this one, or maybe it's this one. I don't know, but I'll just take a first guess right here. Oh my gosh, it's Garu Special. I thought it was Penalty Pong. That's not good. Maybe it's this one. No, it's Super Butoden 3. Maybe it's this one. Okay, finally, Penalty Pong. See what I mean? Imagine if you go to the store and you see Super Famicom games stocked on the shelf. You will want to know what kind of games these are. They are Super Famicom games, but what kind of game is it? It could be Chrono Trigger, it could be Final Fantasy V, it could be Telefantasia, it could be Metal Marines, all of those. It could be any one. You don't know. So, but look over here on the Super Nintendo side. I want you to find Donkey Kong Country. Can you find it? Well, we know that Arrow is over here. We know that Battletoads is here. But which one is Donkey Kong Country? This one, huh? How did you know? Look at the end label. It says Donkey Kong Country. You even see the label designs coming from here too. So this will tell you, oh yes, if I put Super Nintendo games on the store shelves and I wanted to buy a Super Nintendo game, if I want to go to the store shelf and buy, let's say, Chrono Trigger. Okay, I want to buy Chrono Trigger. I look at the shelf and I see these and I say, okay, I already have Super Mario All-Stars. I already have Top Gear. Oh, Donkey Kong Country is a great game too, but I already have that game. I already have Battletoads and I already have Aerobats. So now I wanted to buy Chrono Trigger and I can clearly see that Chrono Trigger is right here. So I'll just tell the lady, okay, can you give me Chrono Trigger? Because I see Chrono Trigger. I want Chrono Trigger. I have to have Chrono Trigger. This is what I love about the Super Nintendo cartridges. Also, if you don't have a shelf, that is, let's see how you stack them. Will they stack that good? Can they stack that good? Well, they could, but as you can tell, it's not steady. It doesn't stack as good as that of the Super Nintendo cartridges because of these rounded edges. If you look at how they are turned, look at that. Let's put the Super Nintendo cartridge together in a neat pile, and let's put the Super Famicom cartridge in a neat pile. Now let's turn them. Let's turn the Super Nintendo game. Now look at that. That is awesome. It's neatly turned all the way. All the game does not make a move. Now let's try to turn the Super Famicom stacks. Now look at that. It's shaking. It's shaking like it cannot do anything, or it's like it's trying to get out of something. So I'll try to neatly put it in. Now let's turn it back. You can tell if you grab the stacks, you have to be careful. It might fall. However, if you try to grab these, you don't have to worry. It doesn't fall. It's all flat. These are not flat. You have to be careful holding them. If you're gonna hold a pile, might as well just hold 6 of them at a time. Super Nintendo, however, you can hold 6, you can hold more than 6, or you can hold like a whole truckload of them and they won't fall. So that's just something that I love about Super Nintendo cartridges over Super Famicom cartridges. Now don't get me wrong, I love the Super Famicom cartridges too, especially the label. They are very colorful and beautiful and nicely designed too. Okay, so after all that comparisons, which one should I prefer? Should I prefer Super Famicom or Super Nintendo? Super Famicom games or Super Nintendo games? Well, I do like both, and I kinda don't like how the Super Famicom controller wire is a bit short, but I do love how the Super Nintendo wire is kinda longer, because when I play my game, I want to be far away from the TV as possible to get some good sights out of playing the games. So if I had to go with any one of this, I'll have to go with the Super Nintendo, the North American ones, and the Super Nintendo controllers. Now there's nothing wrong with the Super Famicom controllers or the Super Famicom game cartridges. I really think that the label here is beautiful. The design here is very smooth and very well designed, and the controller is very well designed, very colorful buttons and all this stuff. But I have to say, comparing it next to North American's Super Nintendo controllers and the way North American designed their cartridges, the way they design it and also design it neatly and comfortably, makes Super Nintendo the winner to me. So Super Famicom, it's beautiful, it's well designed, but to me that's pretty much it. You can't tell which game you're gonna get. You can't stack them neatly, and all of these are the same. There's no varieties to them at all. You only get the same buttons but different colors. And even though it's neatly designed, the Super Nintendo controllers has varieties, and it has all of the controls from the past systems, like these. So if you look at the games and you look at the Super Famicom games, you can tell. If I take you to the store, and I want you to buy me Peno de Pong, do you know where it is? You're not gonna know. If I tell you to buy Battletoads, do you know? Of course. It's right here. Maybe this is Peno de Pong. No, this is Go-Go Ackman 2. So that's why I love the Super Nintendo, both the controllers and the games. So I'm Voan, and this is just my short comparisons of the two platforms here. So you have a great day and look forward to my other videos.